Hey guys, this is the Lifting with Lauren podcast. It has been a very long time since I have recorded a podcast here. Been focusing a lot on our other podcast with my husband, and then also just doing all kinds of business things and dealing with personal things and all of that stuff. So wanted to take today to do a quick podcast episode just to kick things back off again, and also cover a pretty commonly misunderstood idea about fitness. So there's this idea in the fitness community, and it's also perpetuated so much that people, who are not directly affected by the fitness community all think this to be true. This idea of like muscle confusion and, just kind of changing your training stimulus and changing your workouts really, really frequently. That's a very common practice in the fitness community as far as, well, I'll say maybe about 50% of the fitness community maybe does that. Maybe it's more common than that, but this is my assumption here. So, I see it in people who are just everyday, overweight or obese people think that they have to, change up their workout routine every single time they work out, or maybe they just are completely clueless with how to put together a workout routine. I know that a lot of fit pros who are super popular on Instagram and Facebook and all those places, and YouTube especially, they're constantly putting out new different types of workouts for, accomplishing this, accomplishing that. And a lot of times they don't explain that you can't just do the workout once and be done with it and move on to a different type of workout. That if you want to see results, there actually has to be some consistency. So I'm going to kind of break down those ideas just a little bit. So I heard this really cool term today. They called when a trainer constantly changes up the type of exercise or changes up the workouts of their client, it's called entertainment, where they're essentially entertaining their client because the client does get bored. And I know that I've heard this from a lot of clients over the years where, they don't really want to repeat the same workout because they already know what's in it and mentally they are bored of the workout. But what I think is often missed, sometimes by clients, not necessarily just mine, but other people's clients, and then also people who are just trying to get into fitness in general, is if you're pushing yourself really hard and you really have a well laid out program, you're not really going to have to worry as much about being entertained because you're going to be so freaking tired and so challenged that you're not really going to have time to worry about how focused your brain is. I know that right now it's maybe not as common now, but there was for a while this push toward like functional movement in quotes. So there's this idea that functional movement is like animal crawls and doing like these gymnastics type routines and all this other really strange stuff like doing squats on a Bosu ball and blah, 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 blah. Part of the problem with these types of workouts, granted, the people doing them are often very athletic people, very strong, very built. So that's fantastic and all. But part of the problem with these types of workouts is they actually can't be very easily progressed. So what I mean by that is when you are building a workout, essentially you have to incorporate exercises that are basic enough that they can be varied up. So let me provide an example. I'm like walking around with my computer trying to let my dog back in the house because I let her out to go potty. Come inside, please. So an example would be like, let's say a squat. So there are progressions and regressions of the squat pattern. So let's say I have a person who comes to me and they cannot physically perform a squat or they can't perform a weighted squat because they, are untrained, their legs get tired really easily, whatever. So maybe I have them just squat to a bench. So that would be a regression of a regular squat exercise. But maybe let's say they're actually super trained and they need a little bit more of a stimulus. Well, then I can make the movement pattern a little bit more difficult by loading it. Let's say I hand them a kettlebell and they hold it in the goblet position, underneath the chin at the chest. Then they're able to do the exercise with a little bit more load. Or let's say I want to increase the range of motion. I could do that as well, rather than them just squatting, like a quarter squat where they're moving down just part of the way, or like a half squat where their legs are parallel to the floor. I could have them squat down a little bit lower if they have the mobility for it. So those are different types of progressions, and then also a regression example. Any solid strength training program is going to be made up of primarily exercises that you can do that kind of thing with. And here's why. The way that exercise works in general, not exercise, let me back up. Exercise in general can be random. Let's say we're going to call this training. So we have a specific purpose for our training. For example, I've started working primarily with my online clients. I'm primarily working with karate athletes. So when they are doing their karate training, a lot of times they have a specific purpose. If I'm doing their strength and conditioning programming, it's training. I have a specific purpose as to why I'm putting together their strength and conditioning program the way that I am. So if we are training for a specific purpose, then we are trying to create adaptations in the body to get to whatever that end goal is. If your general goal was just like you wanted to be better at moving, then doing things like animal crawls or whatever types of that kind of funky mobility stuff that a lot of people are doing now, that functional movement, some of that may help a little bit. You will see some changes in your mobility, but eventually you'll hit a ceiling. Now, you could vary the movement. That is a principle of training. You could vary the type of movement, and that may change a little bit. But if you want to progress with that same type of adaptation, you have to have a method of doing that. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. So, if I wanted stronger legs, I could technically squat on one of those half-rounded Bosu balls. I could do that. The problem with that is that stability, that surface is extremely unstable. So for some reason, people think that that's functional to improve your stability while you're squatting on a Bosu ball. Actually, the problem with it is that because you are unstable, it's very difficult to increase your strength. You are actually utilizing so much of your nervous system and your musculature to stop yourself from falling over that you're not able to maximize the number of motor units that are being used in strength and actually lifting your body up out of that squat. So that's one of those where we're actually inhibiting our ability to progress the exercise. If we want to strengthen the legs and we want to be able to progress over time, then we would use a more logical version where we are squatting with our feet on solid ground, and then we could add on additional weight as our body gets stronger. We could do, as I said earlier, we could change the range of motion. You could also change the type of squat. You could, instead of just doing a goblet squat, you could do a back squat with a barbell. Or you could do a front squat with a barbell across the front of the shoulders, maybe change the emphasis of which muscles you're working on necessarily. Also kind of changing the weight distribution so it changes the range of motion. You could do a Zercher squat, which is where the barbell is actually being held in the crook of the elbows, and then you're really putting a lot of emphasis on the weight is in front of you, so a lot of emphasis on the core in order to keep the body upright. So there are different ways to change this training stimulus while still using that same basic movement. If you are not providing a basic exercise template that allows you to make those types of changes, that's where you're going to run into issues. To kind of backtrack a little bit, in person, I train a lot of retired women or entrepreneurial women. They're women who they kind of need to get in, get out. They don't have time for frou-frou nonsense for the most part. A lot of them have specific goals, but a lot of them just want to be healthy. They just want to physically feel strong. They do enjoy being able to move heavy weights in some cases, but more than anything, they just want to feel better. If I get them in there and I have them doing things like jumping on stacks of tires and then they fall off and get injured, not only am I hugely liable, but then I have set them back in a number of different ways from their daily tasks, all the busy tasks that they do outside of their time with me. Their entire life doesn't revolve around fitness. Their life revolves around their family, their work, or, their retired life, or whatever it is that they're enjoying doing, their hobbies. It doesn't make sense for me as a fitness professional to give them something that, number one, either calls for more athleticism than they actually have in the tank, or number two, in some cases makes them feel really bad about themselves and serves as sort of an ego booster for myself because I gave them an exercise they couldn't do. To me, a trainer who does that, who provides those types of exercises when they know the client cannot physically perform them, that's nothing but an ego booster, and you're a narcissist that probably needs to see a therapist. Like, I'm just going to be real with you. It's not okay. What is better, not to pat myself on the back, but what is better is to be understanding about a client's needs and to know that your life as a trainer revolves around fitness. Theirs doesn't. So you should be providing a stimulus that will keep them safe, but that will also challenge them, and you should be able to pay attention enough to be able to vary up that stimulus. Now, that's not to say that you can't vary things up, because I get it. Like, sometimes mentally we do check out. We do repeat certain workouts enough that we're just like, I can't do this anymore. It's like, I'm really bored. I need to do something else. And I do get that. With my general fitness clients, we actually will change our workouts once a month. Now, that's not because they are not seeing any more gains. That's not true at all. I could probably have my clients continue on with their same workouts for another 4 to 8 weeks, and they would probably still see increases in strength, increases in mobility, increases in overall fitness. We could probably do that. But for the sake of their sanity and also mine, I do change their workouts every 4 weeks or every month or so. With my athletes, it's a little bit different. I don't necessarily make those changes as often. And here's a couple reasons why. Number one, my in-person clients, they're not athletes. They're just general, run-of-the-mill people. And this is basically the majority of the fitness that they are getting. I want to make sure that they are staying engaged, but more than anything, as a trainer, I get a chance to experiment with a lot of things on them, but then not to the point where they're being injured. They get a chance to try new things, and I basically just give them a chance to kind of have fun while they're still receiving a good progressive overload stimulus. With my athletes online, it's a little different. Like I said, because they have specific training goals, and because they're also athletes, they have a little bit more disciplined of a mind. So they understand that sometimes the grind is part of it. Like, you're not going to always be super happy about training. You're not going to always be motivated to train. And you're not going to enjoy it all the time. You're not going to always do things that are really fun. And most of the time they get that. So because of that, we're able to make their training programs run a bit longer, which is fantastic because they usually see better results from that. So, just to reiterate, if you're putting together your own training program, or if you're looking for a coach or a trainer who is going to be designing your program for you, be on the lookout for things like, how often they're changing your training stimulus. It is okay in some cases for coaches to give you something that's a bit more templated. But when a coach throws a training program at you where literally every single time you work out, you are doing something different, there's a problem there. It's one thing to take a workout and have a list of exercises and then maybe change the order of them. That's totally fine. You're still doing the same exercises at least for a little while. But when every single time you do it, it's something different, to me personally, that's a red flag. Now, everything on a continuum. If you are, not in fitness at all and you just want to work with somebody who you're motivated by, you found a Fit Pro online, you like their stuff, you're committed to doing it, and they're going to change your workout every single time you work out, okay, fine. But we're talking about like optimizing your training. You really want to try to stick with something that's going to be, a little bit repetitive, but you're going to see the best results with. The best way that you can tell that too is make sure that you're logging your training. So keep track of different stats about your training. That's kind of the difference too between, the whole functional fitness stuff in quotes and then, structured regular training it's usually easier to keep track of stats with your very standard basic training than it is with more functional stuff. So you can keep track of, your sets, your number of sets you're doing, the number of repetitions you're performing. Obviously if you get extra repetitions, that's obviously another great way to monitor progress, your increases in weight, also other things like how your body's feeling, that kind of thing. So those are some great ways to see your progress, because if you are needing some motivation but you want to stick with a more solid strength training program, that could be maybe something that helps to bridge that gap, is being able to see the changes in your body, being able to see the changes in your fitness. That way you're more motivated. So this was just a kind of a quick overview of that. I don't do intertrainment. I can't even say the word. I don't do intertrainment. And I really would highly suggest against it. If you've got any questions about that, what the heck I am talking about, if that wasn't clear, because I know I rambled all over the place, feel free to send me an email. I got a new email address, laurenhartscscs@gmail.com, or you can, if you're watching this on YouTube or looking at this on social media, you can leave a comment below, and hopefully I'll see you soon in the next one. Bye!